So the question today is, how hard do you have to work to make your book a top seller? Laurel Senick, welcome to Reality Coaching for Writers, where we offer nothing but the real stuff, no fluff, or in your case, no whitewater foam.
Yeah.
Welcome. So real quick, before we jump into the marketing side of this, tell me a little bit about why you came up with the title Foam for your book.
Well, for me, same thing happened with my documentary film. Is I didn't know what the title was. I had a working random first sentence part of the title, and then you get to a scene and suddenly you go foam. That's the ticket.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, foam works better than white water, washing machine, all that.
Well, I had my proofreader also look at the next book that's going to come out, and I got some not good feedback from her because the next book was going to be called Luminescent because it takes place at a bioluminescent bay, and she's like, nobody knows how to spell luminescent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, and she's right. I can't even spell it.
Yeah, well, you kind of had my heart because back in the day, I mean, a long time ago, back when Woody Sterone still ran Surf City and Roy still, Woody ran Surf and Stuff, and Woody he owned Surf and Stuff, and then he died up at Atlantic Beach with the Hubby Cat, whole deal. Roy was working at Surf and Stuff, but then after Woody died, Roy couldn't take over the shop. So that's when Roy left and went and opened Surf City there in Riceville Beach, right?
Okay.
Anyway, this is a backstory. So all that time, I was writing a manuscript called 6 Foot and Glassy that never went anywhere. I never finished the book, but I've still got these typewritten pages. So you had me at anything to do with surfing, so that's good.
Come on, you got to finish that.
Well, I've since found out that if it's 6 foot and glassy, that means I probably can't ride it, can't get out to it anymore. so
paddle out's brutal.
Yeah, now I'm looking for 3 foot and glass on a longboard. I'm like Jimmy Buffett. So you worked really hard to make this book a top seller, and I think our listeners would be really interested to know just how hard you work. So kind of walk us through that process a little bit.
Well, I think, one of the things I feel like that changed my whole paradigm of what am I going to do to sell this thing was getting banned from Amazon 6 months before it was to come out. Or no, yeah, about 6 months before this book was going to be released. And it was such a punch in the gut. I had created just a couple of little surf journals to test out KDP. And they hadn't been out 30 days when I get an email from Amazon that said, you've broken terms and conditions and we've taken your stuff down. We're keeping your royalties and you can't come back. And I had just gotten to Puerto Rico and I'm like laying in the hammock like, oh, I'm going to be sick.
Did Amazon ever give you any further explanation, or did they just leave it like that?
They continued with that narrative for multiple emails or not responding to an email. Yeah. And then I reached out to Ally, the Alliance for Independent Authors, and they have a liaison, which after scanning YouTube videos and just seeing how often this actually does happen, they have a liaison with Amazon, but she told me this is going to be a very slow process. So another couple of months went by before I heard from Amazon I would send an email every couple of weeks. Yeah. And this one came back that said, because Ally was like, oh, well, maybe it was a copyright issue. And I'm like, it's a journal. It's a picture I took. And so I get this email from Amazon that says, we detected manipulation of Amazon services and we can't tell you anything else. So then I was like, I know this is a mistake. I didn't even, there was no manipulation of anything because I didn't do anything. And then my book released June 21st in March, mid-March. I get an email from Amazon that said, we are going to take you back. We're going to give you another chance.
Yeah.
And you're welcome to resubmit what you have on there, but don't ever do it again. I'm like, what did I do? But then I thought, well, surely now that because you can't call or talk
Right.
anymore, you could only email. And so I was like, okay, well, now that I'm back in, I'm going to give it a few days and then call them and request a call, and maybe they can tell me why. Because I'd heard other people online that they had gotten back in and then they found out that it really wasn't anything. Well, you can't speak to anybody in that content.
Nope.
Yeah. So I have no idea. So I only resubmitted one journal because I was just like, I've got to have more than one thing. I mean, I want to be able to have something that goes tandem with this. I mean, they don't go together, but it's a surf journal for women. And it's just reflective, like log your surf stats, but then it has a couple of, mindful, reflective questions. And so I couldn't, but when I resubmitted the journal, I just said, please, to the review people, is there anything wrong with this thing? And they assured me that there wasn't. And so I haven't had, but I mean, I don't, you just dread ever hearing that. But so as soon as I knew that I was out, I started thinking, okay, what's plan B?
Yeah.
And I had always thought about how am I going to market to my people, like Christian surfers, surf rider, getting it out to maybe some surfer influencers that I follow on Instagram. And so then I kind of doubled down on that. And I'll tell you, I probably only have a few. I mean, I'm in Barnes and Noble, our local Barnes and Noble. And, but I am in 30 maybe stores, and only a few of them are bookstores. Most of them are surf shops, boutiques. I'm in the grocery store at Wrightsville Beach, Robert's Grocery. This little pokey old, it's nostalgic though. This is the only grocery store on the island. Well, and I this other book was in there. It was the only book in there. And I was like, wonder how that book's doing. And she said it was doing really well. And I said, well, my book will be coming out in a couple of months. I'm hoping, and I go in there after I surf. I'm in there multiple times a week. And she said, sure. And I did signings every other weekend for almost 2 months. And it was a windfall. I had people, and the first one, I was nervous. I was like, oh, everybody's in line, lining up behind me, all these beach goers.
Yeah.
And the lady, she's just a hoot. She's like, do y'all need a beach read? Because she's right over here. You need to get her book. And then I was like, okay, let me get a little spiel going. But then I would say, hey, do y'all have a beach read today? And if they said no, and I was like, hey, you should take a look at this. It starts at Wrightsville Beach. And if they said yes, I would say, but is it signed by the author? And they were like, no. And then they'd come in to take a little closer look. And so I ended up selling, I would do 2-hour stints and I'd sell 15 books.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
I know. It was
pretty good.
It was shocking. And so that was kind of a breakthrough for me, just to see, okay, being where the people are. For one, I knew that I was going to release it in the early summer, but I didn't know what the date was. And picking the first day of summer was, I mean, I don't know why so many more books don't do that if it's a beach read, because that got me on the news. That got me on TV for our main local station. That helped out a lot.
Yeah.
In the get going. Wrightsville Beach Magazine, they're pretty adamant about not doing any kind of advertising for, say, a book like that. But I had been in it before for our podcast, and the guy that had written the article, I reached out to him, and he had reached out to the managing editor, and she had said no, but she said it's got to be something, something, something. And so he was like, and she said, if you can rework it, I'll do it.
Right.
And he did, and he just did me a solid favor because it was in there. And just from that, I had a couple of book clubs pick it up. And
Yeah.
and then that's been fun. That's the most fun I've had since doing this, has been coming to a book club where there's like 12 ladies, none of them surfers. They all live at the beach though, so they love Wright's
Yeah.
Beach. And I mean, I got home and I ran up to my husband. I'm like, I felt like I was on the red carpet. They made me feel so good and so special, and just they had put out some hors d'oeuvres that, I mean, I hadn't even thought about till after that. Like, oh, now when I send some questions to a book club, I'll send some recipes that, or queso. They served queso dip for this one bad character in the story, and peanuts and Pepsi that's also featured in the book. So anyway.
Yeah, that sounds that I remember doing that years ago. Oh gosh, 25, 30 years ago. And I did this circuit. I did Ocracoke, I think it was the Red House, the Red Bookshop in Ocracoke. I don't even know.
The Buxton books? No, wait, that's in Hatteras.
Yeah, that was in. I never got down to Buxton, but we sold out to Ocracoke and did a book signing in Ocracoke. But then they've had floods since, so I'm not even sure the bookstore's still there anymore. But I did Ocracoke and Oriental and Beaufort. I don't think didn't get a Riceville Beach. I got to Southport. But you're right, the circuit is pretty good, and it does get your name out there. It gets you in the stores. I mean, you're right. If you've got a book, you get it in a store. So I think that's probably the takeaway for authors is, to your point, you got to be out there. It's not just showing up at a store and say, "Will you carry my book?" It's having to bring something with it to go. Can we do a book signing and have some fun doing this? And if you sell a few copies, the stores typically want to keep a few copies around, right?
That's as soon as I say, along with, what do you think about, maybe, I think this fits with some of the things that you have in your store. What do you think about carrying this? And then my second question is, what event do you have coming up? Because I don't want to be the only thing I've noticed. I mean,
Right.
that's cool, but I mean, after a while, I've had all my friends come,
Yeah.
they've already bought the book and then bought it for a friend. But, as far as so one that surprised me was, I just random thought, wonder what about the Maritime Market at Bald Head Island?
Yeah.
I've been there. I don't remember. I'm sure there's the books that are in there, but I just called over there and got an email address for who I needed to emailed her. She couldn't have been any nicer. They ordered 12 books a
Yeah.
case, and so it was just shipping it to them, and then they didn't even do consignment. They paid me outright. And so when I was going back to all the places going, hey, what do you have upcoming for the holidays? Do you have any big days? And she said, our Thanksgiving weekend is like July 4th. I was like, oh, that's cool. And she said, we're going to have a bourbon and cigar tasting and a live music. Why don't you come? I was like, yeah, my husband's coming too. I said, well, can you cover is there a way to get a discount on the ferry? She's like, oh yeah, we'll take your parking and your ferry fee. And I was like, I can't think of something more fun to do.
Yeah. No, that's great. That is great. Yeah. Did you run into any pushback from any of the stores about whether or not your book was on Amazon at a lower price? Did that come up at all in any of those?
Well, it hasn't. And one of the reasons is because I haven't dropped it yet.
Okay.
I almost dropped it the other day. And then I was like, I had just gone in one book club. There was one girl that went to Catholic church. I used to dance with her, and her book club had like 12 ladies. And then we were dancing at a fundraiser at their church for something else. And I mean, it was not a Catholic thing. And this other lady that she knew says, "Oh, I've had a book club going since the 90s, the same ladies." And she said, "We would like to do it." And so she got up with me just recently, and she said, "I really want to shop local. So tell me where it's at." So there's a local bookstore who was not kind enough to carry it. And she reached out to me and said, "Let's get some more books in here for these ladies." And I had thought, well, I wanted to do around Black Friday, drop the price and start playing with the advertising, because I can't be competitive at this point on Amazon at release price. I mean, it's still selling, but nothing like it was, a couple months ago. But and I dropped it and then I put it right back. I was like, what am I doing? You know what? Let's get through the holidays. My goal was 1,000 by the end of the year. I'll hit 1,000 probably next week. And I don't want to, that's kind of been the thing, is I don't want to screw over all these places that are carrying my book. Now I realize if you don't have Amazon Prime and you're paying shipping, of course everybody has Amazon Prime, I assume, but but still, so it is really comparable. I want to take it down to $15. It's 18 now, 17.99, and I feel like you expect to pay more at a beach shop. I'm thinking after the new year, because then I'm not going to do any marketing here. I'm not going to keep pushing that, because I got to get book number 2 done so that it can release the first day of summer next year. And just listening to some of my podcasts about publishing, like after a certain point, you're done. You've maxed out. I mean, obviously, once it can get some generate some momentum on Amazon, yes, maybe I can get some more publicity at some point. But I'm thinking after the new year, I'll drop the price, try some of the Amazon marketing. I did play with it at the regular price and got some clicks and maybe one purchase, but I didn't spend $5. Just seeing what would it link to. And it was funny how that changed now when you go to the book, who else has bought this book?
Right.
You see some different shifts. And yeah, I'm excited to play around with it just for, just to see. But I'm not ready to. I was like, what am I thinking? I'm keeping it this until the end of the year, and then I'll change it. Because there are people, they're Joe Blow. All the people that have been kind to me, the Buxton bookstore. I was there for, I went to a couple of film festivals that I'd gone to the year before, and they had me come back and just do a reading and sell my book. And so Surfalorus was at the Outer Banks, and I'm from Elizabeth City, so I go down there anyway. But I drove out to Hatteras, and this cute Buxton Village Books is the cutest bookstore. And she was like, "Oh, I'll take 26.
Wow.
I didn't have 26 with me. I was like, I gave her 16, I think. And she just said, "I feel like I have a market for that book, and, I think it'll do well." And, you just don't know. And that was something I found out too when I was selling hand to hand at Robert's Grocery or the surf shop or the coffee shop, is don't assume they don't want your book.
Yeah.
Assume that they want your book, because I was blown away at the different types of people that I would have just not really thought that they'd be interested, but they were. And so, it got me so that I just try every time, just get for it. And it does help to have a little, like some sentence. I mean, yes, for that was, do you have a beach read? But now that I'm not maybe at the beach doing a signing, or I'm at a market or something, having somebody come close to you where they can, sometimes they just walk past you and they're not really making eye contact. I mean, if you're at a craft market or whatever, you can just say, how are you? Are you enjoying some of the booze, or have you found some good Christmas presents yet, or something that's not salesy,
right?
To get them to lighten up and not worry about coming close to something that they might not buy. And So I found that helpful. I don't know if that'll help any of your listeners if they're.
No, I think that's a good tip for a really good tip for authors if they're doing a book signing, because it is kind of a hicky deal when you're sitting behind a table or standing behind a table, and everybody knows that you want them to buy your book, but they're going, but I don't even read in that genre, so why would I be interested?
Yeah.
And if you can find a way to actually help people, whatever it is, whatever it is, and just be striking up a conversation and saying, how's your day? Or, how old's your kid? That's a way of building a little bit of rapport. And it has nothing to do with pitching the book,
Exactly.
I asked about the Amazon thing because there was one time I was in Beaufort and they had purchased copies. This was years ago, right after Amazon had gotten, back in the early 2000s. So they had just kind of taken off, right? And the bookstore found out that the book was on Amazon, and Amazon had discounted, and they called me up and said, we're not buying your book anymore. And I was like, why? And they go, because you got it on Amazon. And I was like, I didn't discount it. They go, we don't care. So I learned that lesson. That's why I asked if you have it on Amazon, because it is, from a local bookseller standpoint or a small shop standpoint, they're trying to make money, and they know Amazon doesn't care about making money on books. They're making it on other things, but they really don't care about books. At least that's been my experience. So that's kind of if you're going to push it hard on the local level, I think you've done the right strategy. Be loyal to the people that have been loyal to you. That's the lesson I would go with.
And I'll just say this is a little new pet peeve that I've realized that, okay, so you said Amazon's not interested in books, but I know who is, and that's Goodwill. They are actively targeting authors. Well, no, they're not, but they're actively selling books, and they're making bank on books because people drop them off all the time. And I look through all these books, because once your books sell a certain amount, they're going to end up there, and then they're going to be undercutting you every time. I mean, like, they just put it right, they're watching those numbers. And so I'm thinking about doing a post where I hate to diss on Goodwill, but take it to another local charity. These guys are, I don't know, I'm not liking them too much.
Yeah, it is one of those. That's the sign that your book is aged out and dead when it shows up at the Goodwill store.
Right. But I mean, I feel like a lot of people who buy a book, they donate it when they're done, if they didn't give it to somebody else.
Yeah, and that's the thing we talk about on fiction. Fiction is a consumable item because it's like a TV show or a movie. Once you've seen it or read the story one time, you know how it goes.
Yeah.
Nonfiction's different. Nonfiction, if you're getting good information, you'll go back, highlight, dog ear, pick it up, reread it again, get that same information and absorb it one more time in a different way. But not so much with fiction, unless you really love the author.
And you know what I'm gonna do? You know what? That just gave me a really good idea.
What's that?
I've been thinking about it anyway, but this might help me retain those books or keep them out of Goodwill's hands. Maybe do a giveaway. I was thinking about it'd be fun to do a Puerto Rico retreat where we go to some of the places that are in the book. And I've been, because there's a lot of fun places that I would go anyway.
Right.
And I think people enjoy reading about this Caribbean paradise, but then you got to keep your book. And so, but if I do a giveaway, then they're going to want their book so they can refer back to it. I don't know but if I did a retreat just for that and had one winner, maybe people sign up.
Well, if you put a journal in the back of foam, and I don't know how the printing part of this worked for you, but if you have a journal in the back where people can list their surf dates, the conditions and all that, once they start marking up in the book, it makes it a little bit harder to sell even a fiction book because it's stuff in the back of the book, right?
Yeah.
And much more reluctant. That's why we used to always, when we were doing the devotionals, we would always have the line pages for journaling. Because if you do that, it's going to be harder for a used bookstore to pick up a devotional with it. It's got somebody's personal stuff written into it. They're not that interested in it.
Oh, good one. Noted.
So tell us a little bit about the production side of foam. How did you work on that side of it?
Well, I had gone to the Well Conference in Michigan twice actually, and I'd met the cover designer there, a German fellow. He did a really good job. I mean, of course, the pictures from a site you comb or whatever for professionals, and of course, with AI, I plan to like play around with that a little bit because the next one's about it's a minor character in this one, and Raquel, and she's a surf photographer. And so that's going to be a little bit more I don't know. I want that bioluminescence in there. And, but anyway, so I met him. He did a great job. I used, an editor that I heard of from a friend of a friend and a proofreader from a friend of a friend. And I did two separate, I took a break from foam after the first big edit, and I mean I did the edits, and then I was just like, I can't even. It'd been 6 years or 5 years at that point, and I couldn't read a sentence with that it felt new or clear or anything. Everything just was muddled, and so I took the time to write book number 2, or the first draft or second draft, and then pulled foam back out. You know what? I think I can make this work. And I did another edit with that same woman, and I knew I needed to have somebody different for the proofreader because I kind of felt like with the second one, I mean, and she said how much better it was. It was really through her that I knew that it was ready to go. I mean, I could still make it better, but I think I was done. And I guess some people say they know without a doubt that their book is done. I did not know. I didn't know if anybody was going to like it. And I've been pleasantly surprised. I know it's not a Pulitzer Prize winner. It's not literary. It's commercial, but it's fun to read. And I've had older men, young guys paddle over to me around the pier just to tell me that they enjoyed it. So that was incredible. I never even imagined guys reading it, really. I just imagined surfer girls like me reading it. And so to see older ladies enjoying it at a book club that don't surf, so that's all been, thank you God for that. But
yeah, Al Gansky had said years ago, he says a writer, an author on a novel, they never finish the novel. They just abandon the project and then give it to the editor and move on.
I'm doing a surrender.
Let the housing inspector come in and do the punch list and just sell it. Just sell it.
Yes. And I at the time didn't know if Amazon was going to be an option to get my books printed. So I was reaching out all over the country. Actually, I just met with a young woman who's done a children's book, and she did a giant print run, and I'm just like, wow, I'm glad I didn't have that pressure of all these books sitting in I mean, of course that's a motivator. You got the books, you're like, okay, I got to do this. But then when KDP took me back, I created my own publishing house, whatever, just so I could have that on my books as opposed to a generic ISBN from Amazon. And I went through draft to digital to I didn't have another $700 to pay for the interior design of my book, and draft to digital offers it. And of course I would have loved to have had a little surfboard or this, and I could have had a lot of embellishments, I suppose, but it's fine. It's simple, and I liked it good enough to move on from that. And I really appreciate the services they provide, which is that formatting piece, the link on your website that you can have all the different links in one. And they offer that for free, which is why I ended up using them instead of Ingram Spark. I don't think Ingram Spark had dropped their fees. I'm gonna have to Yeah, I probably won't use them again because they do have a terrible rate. Like, when a bookstore is ordering from them or, it's through Ingram Spark,
Right.
but I think they do, it's an automatic 40%. And then they're taking, I don't know, it feels like this, I'm not getting much from those, but I don't
You're
have
talking,
many of
you're
those.
talking about from draft to digital or from, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Ingram Spark is now in the US, you've got a minimum 40% that you have to give them now.
Mhm.
Which Diana and I talked about this week. We're pretty sure that was dictated by Amazon. But it is the game you have to play. So that's the thing about what you're doing is the hand selling and going to shop, you're going to make more money per unit price because you're not losing 15% on the distributor part of it right up front. You can still offer the store the 40% discount and you're keeping the extra 15. And
Yeah.
so it's almost, at least I found it was worth my time and gas and time to do it that way. And the other thing for me, and this is all about you, not me, but I was always surprised when I went back to the shops that they didn't have any copies left. They sold out. And have you run into that where you go back and they're down to one or two or none left and you have to restock?
Multiple times at the surf shop, at even like one shop that I thought, oh no, man, they haven't sold any. I feel bad because they paid me outright, and but then the next time I go, they're gone. And so it helped that I had another magazine called Intercoastal Magazine that goes to landfall and all those, and I was kind of mad because they didn't put a picture of the book on it. I was like, what? And they did another book was on the cover, like a different author, and they had multiple pictures with this guy and his book and a little inset of his book, and they did not put that picture of foam in there. But I think it's still any publicity is good publicity.
Yep.
But I did meet with him face to face after the fact because he happened to be with the photographer, and I said something, and he was like, "Oh, well, we don't do a lot of we sell advertising, but there was another article in this magazine with it in there, so he kind of didn't." He kind of wavered on that, and I was telling him I was having a little trouble getting into Barnes and Noble, getting the book on the shelf, and the guy was just hard to, I don't know, bless you, it just took a little bit, and he's like, oh well, when you do a sign, because they said they're not doing any signings till spring. And so I'm like, why not? What? He's like, well, we're just too busy. I'm thinking, what do you do? I'll just be standing there selling the book for you. But anyway, he said, well, when you do have a signing, we'll do another little thing. So maybe it worked out best that it didn't have the picture, and he's gonna help me out again. But they sold out of Barnes and Noble. He just did another buy 6 books,
I'm sitting there thinking, Laurel, next time you do a book signing, if you buy a book, you get a free bar of surf wax.
Yeah.
That'd get the kids coming in or a free sticker. I mean, I'm thinking of Natural Art Surf Shop out in Buxton. If you could hook up with Lynn and get a whole bunch of buy a whole bunch of for their stickers at discount. You buy a book, you get a Natural Art Surf Shop sticker or a city sticker or something like that. It's not much, but it's enough for a kid to go, yeah, I'd like that sticker, get the book.
Yeah.
So real quick,
I did do a lot of surf contest, or I've done a few surf contests, which is a big investment as far as time and travel or whatnot. So, and I mean, I sell a good amount of books. Not a good amount. I'd say I'd sell about 15, in a day, or 10 in a day. That's all day. And I realized in 2 hours I sell that over here, so kind of figuring out, I mean, I do want to make sure my name is out there with this.
All right, so we're running out. We've got about 40 seconds left. Give me your 20-second pitch on book 2.
Oh, okay, book 2. Raquel surf photographer has a terrible accident. Her mentor betrays her, and the up and coming Kelly Slater, Bank Shackelford, is injured, and he will never be able to surf professionally again. She returns home blackballed from the surf photography business in Puerto Rico, and Hurricane Maria hits. The power's out. She's about to lose her camera equipment, possibly her home. That's where it starts.
All right, Kelly Slater, you heard it. You're in the movie when it comes out.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thanks, Laurel.
Thank you. Hopefully people will maybe see this book and pick it up.